So I pushed an update to my game Hunt the Muglump, and immediately ran into a pretty nasty problem. As soon as I plugged in a controller, or ran it on Steam Deck, the game just stopped responding to input. The keyboard worked fine, but the moment a gamepad was detected, nothing. Even weirder, Unity knew the gamepad was there, I could see it, but none of the controls actually did anything. Keep in mind, this game has been around for a few years. I've had gamepad and keyboard input support on it for a while, and they both worked great, but all of a sudden, the gamepad was not working. So I started digging through my input code, and I found this line. Yeah, that's suspicious. So I removed it, rebuilt the game, and nothing changed. Turns out, that code is only used in the mobile build of the game. So it had absolutely nothing to do with the issue that was showing up on the desktop version, which meant it was back to the drawing board to try to figure out where the problem actually was. At this point, I started logging everything, and what I found was kind of confusing. The gamepad was sending input. Unity was detecting button presses. But my actual input system, the one the game uses, wasn't reacting at all. And this is where it got interesting. Unity was actually splitting my input between two different systems. The old legacy input system and the new input system. So the gamepad input was going into one system, and my game logic was listening to the other. Essentially, I had two problems. Number one, a couple of years ago, when I ported my game over to Unity's new input system, I left some of the hooks to the legacy input intact. That worked back then, but for whatever reason, now it wasn't working as well. The other issue was that in the new Unity input system, I had set up bindings for X input gamepads, but not for the generic gamepad. That worked okay in Windows, but on Linux, which I was now targeting in order to have native support for Steam Deck, that didn't work at all. So the fix for this was basically twofold. Firstly, I had to fully commit to the new input system, which meant going back through the older code where I was still referencing the legacy input and replacing it with new input system references. The other fix, which ended up being the most important, was adding an explicit input binding for the generic gamepad and not just for X input. Again, X input worked great in Windows, which seems to map every gamepad through X input, but in Linux, this was a no-go. And of course, that wasn't the end of it. There was still one more bug, where pressing submit to start a new game would immediately trigger shoot mode in gameplay, because Unity still considered the button pressed after the state changed. So I added a small input gate, basically requiring the button to be released before the next state could respond. Simple fix, but super important for controller input. So the key takeaways from this were, if you're working with Unity's input system, don't mix the old and new systems unless you absolutely have to. And most importantly, I think, when you're mapping your gamepad input, do be sure to map to the generic Unity gamepad and not to X input or any of the more specific gamepad modules, unless you have a specific reason to do so. If you'd like to check out the game, it's called Hunt the Muglump. It's available now on Steam for Windows, Linux, and Mac OS, and it's also available for iPhone through the Apple Store. Also, I'd love to invite you to check out my comic book, The Lion of God, Q is for Quantum. The first two issues are available in print and digital format on Amazon.com and through my website, VenomousPress.com. I'll be posting more devlogs like this as I continue to update Hunt the Muglump, and also as I'm working on my new project, Bridge Troll Simulator, which I'll be excited to share more details about in the coming months. Thank you for tuning in. Please like and share this video.